Welcome to Mondays with Michelle, where every week we share real stories of hope, healing, and faith. I'm Michelle, and together we'll meet incredible people whose journeys will encourage your heart and inspire your walk with Christ. I'm so glad you decided to spend your Monday with me, and I hope this week's episode is the fuel you need to help you begin your week. Welcome again. It is Mondays with Michelle. We are so glad that you joined us again today, taking the time to hear an inspirational story. Our guest today, I have known since I was very little. I should have came up with an old picture and showed it, but I have known our guest since elementary school. We grew up together all the way through school, and she has a special story to share. So Sarah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I'm Sarah Britton, and yes, I think it was like since 5 or 6 we've known each other. Because I was explaining to my children because they wanted to know, how do you know this girl? So today we're just gonna talk about, I guess, the blessing that the Lord gave me that I didn't know I needed.
Hey, that is a great way to say it. And after you hear her story, you'll say, wow, a blessing, but it is amazing what she's going to share today. So Sarah, after school, we graduated, and it's kind of weird when you're in school. Everybody just kind of goes their different way. This person might go to that college. This person might move away. But Sarah moved someplace special. So Sarah, tell us, where did you move after our high school?
Well, I went to college after college.
Okay.
Yeah, so after college, I had the opportunity to teach school in Saipan. It's a teeny tiny island in the Pacific, one of the Northern Mariana Islands. It's about 9-hour flight from Hawaii. So it's close to Japan. I taught school there for 3 years. And then after that, I got a job offer in Hawaii. And I moved to Hawaii, and I think I lived there for about 4 years, and I taught school there. It was an amazing opportunity. I mean, I loved every minute of it. And I miss it sometimes today because it was awesome.
So you were teaching English, I'm guessing, and these...
No, I was teaching in Saipan. I was teaching in an international school. I was teaching second and third grade my first year, all this subjects. And then in Hawaii, I taught first grade. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's pretty neat. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's neat. I know it's a neat experience. I know my sister went to Germany, and her kids went to the international school. And for kids to have that experience, it's amazing. So you taught school, you were in Hawaii, and now where does your story take you?
So after I was in Hawaii, I was dating long distance. He was living in Chicago, so he begged me to move out there. I was like, why would I leave Hawaii and move to Chicago? Are you kidding me? But I did end up doing that, obviously, and we got married. And shortly after we married, I got pregnant, and it was about, I think about a month early. I went into contractions, which I didn't know. It was my first child. And it was like all night, I was like, something's wrong with me. And so anyway, I had gone to the doctor the day previous and, had just a regular checkup. And so I tried to tell my husband, and he's like, oh, just go back to bed, nothing. And then finally I was like, no, something's wrong. So I called like the hospital or whatever to find out, should I come in or whatever. But that appointment, we knew that the baby was breech. And it was still like a month ahead. So they were like, it wasn't really a big deal. On the phone, I told them, I said, does it make a difference that the baby is breech? And they're like, oh yeah. They said, you are probably going into labor. They wanted to like time your contractions, whatever. So anyway, I think it was like 5 or 6, something. It was real early that morning. We went into the hospital. And I walked in to the hospital. And my husband was like calling all the family and said, oh, don't worry. It's just a false alarm. No big deal. I'm sure she'll just be going back home. So they laid me out on the table, whatever. And they hooked me to all these things and just leave me there. And I'm like, okay. And it was just getting worse, the contractions. So finally this lady comes in and she's like, wow, they need to come in here and check whatever. A monitor was just like going off the charts, and they come in and check, and they're like, oh, wow. And then they see that she's still breech. They did a ultrasound or whatever. And then they saw that was 9 centimeters dilated. I walked in the hospital 9 centimeters dilated, and I didn't even know. But I guess since I walked in, they didn't really think anything about it. And so I mean, all these people just rushed into the room, and they told my husband, the baby is coming, like, now. We have to get the baby out because it was breech. I say it because we didn't know the gender at that time. It was breech. And so they rushed me, to the OR. My husband barely made it in. And they prepped me and everything, and they, got Tinley out. Emergency C-section. It happened really, really fast. And I was like, I was awake from the top up, but numb, down. So I kind of knew what was going on, but not really. So when they pulled her out, I saw them hold her, and I noticed her head. Her head kind of looked like a cone shape. I thought, oh, it's just because she was in my ribs or something. So they pulled my husband aside, and they said, did you know that your daughter was going to be born like this? And he's like, no. And they're like, we need to take her to the NICU. So he's like, yeah, that's fine. So they took her away, and we were together, and then they put me like in recovery area, and it was really quiet. Nobody was really saying anything, and they just let me go, I guess, for a while. And, some of it's kind of blurry because I don't remember. It's been 15 years. But shortly after that, I'm sure when I got in my room and doctors were coming in and they were trying to tell us, like, what was going on. Like, she was born in Chicago at a university hospital. So they knew exactly her diagnosis, even though it was pretty rare. They knew that, of course, she didn't have any testing yet, but they knew that she was born with Apert Syndrome, is what they called it. And the main features or anomalies of Apert Syndrome is your skull is fused at birth. Normally you have the soft spots, and then fingers and toes were fused. So that's the major anomalies, and then a lot of different things come along with that.
Can you spell that? Just because I would have no clue if I was trying to look it up. How do you spell that?
Yeah, Apert is A-P-E-R-T, Apert Syndrome. And generally, syndromes are named after the people that coined them. So it's like a person's name, their last name.
Okay.
So anyway, it's probably, there's different quotes, but it's like one in 60,000 or 1 in 100,000, something like that. But in Tinley's case, she was even more rare because of her skull. And generally in Apert Syndrome, children have maybe one fused suture or two, but Tinley had all of them. How many of her sutures? I'm not sure how many there are, but all of hers were fused. And giving her a cone-like shaped head, which they call it clover leaf. And so that's very rare. I don't know, maybe in a million, or something like that. In the syndrome that we've met a lot of other people, and we have Facebook groups and stuff. We probably know maybe 4 or 5 like her. That's it. She's one of the older ones. So they're explaining all this stuff to us. Just a ton of doctors, our head's just about to blow off. I just had a C-section. I can't even really get out of bed. And I don't think I saw her the first day because, she was in the incubator in the NICU. She was considered premature, but she was like 7 pounds, 2 ounces. I think she was born at 36 or 37 weeks, something like that. My husband, spent, more time with her the first day with her. And then they finally wheeled me in and I got to see her. I stayed in the hospital with her for 3 days, of course, because just to recover. And they actually, which is very rare, they let my husband stay there with me and gave him his own bed. Like we had a whole room because they missed this. They did not know about this before she was born. Well, rewind, I had a midwife through the whole process, not a doctor, but a midwife. But they had seen her head the day before when they did the ultrasound. The day before I went in, they saw the shape of her head because undoubtedly the previous ultrasound, her head hadn't formed that way yet. So they were going to call and reschedule the next day and get us an appointment to do a follow-up, but she came. To me, it was of God, but she came, and I guess we didn't have time to worry because she came, and so we didn't know any of that. The midwife did not get to be with me, during the delivery because it was just midwives don't do C-sections. But anyhow, funny story, but she came when David was born and she helped the other midwife. So that was really cool. But
And I can't imagine what. So I had to have a C-section for my first two because she was breech, and you're scared. It's your first baby. You've never gone through this before, and all I had was pain. And I'm like, I don't know. Is that a contraction? I don't know, but it hurts. Something's not right. Let's just go. And so I'm in the room, and they're doing the ultrasound, and the nurse says, "Oh no." You don't tell a first time mom that's going to have a baby, "Oh no," and then walks out of the room. And I'm like, something's wrong. Well, you're just in panic. Like, what? And we did not know she was breech. And when she saw that, that's why she said, "Oh no." So then they come in and said, "We're going to need to do a C-section." And that's scary in itself. And when you said going to the recovery room, they said, "You have to stay here till you can move your legs because you're numb." Well, everybody left me. Like, you're in that room all by yourself. So I know.
no, my husband was there the whole
No.
time.
Okay.
And I don't remember, you have to stay here till legs. I don't remember. I don't remember what, I mean, it was all blur to me. I'm just
Yeah, I
freaking out.
kept crying.
Nobody's talking. Nobody's saying anything. They're
Yeah.
just kind of like, and we're just like, we knew we were having a baby. And then we found out she was a girl. And we didn't know that. We chose to, wait. And then, so I had already picked out the girl's name. He was supposed to pick out the boy. So I knew it was going to be Tinley Grace. And so anyway, the first day I went in to see her was quite a shock because I had just seen her from a distance. And wow, she was just a strong, little girl, and she loves to hear the story about, her birth and everything. So the only thing I could think, in all honesty, is she gonna live, because I never seen anything like that. I was like, I don't know. I just thought, I don't see how she's gonna live, And so, and talking to the doctors was so overwhelming. I don't even remember how many it was because we had like plastic surgery, we had neurosurgeon, we had their general pediatrics. I mean, and they were just saying all these terms. I mean, I had no clue, and I hate the hospital. I don't go to the doctor. I mean, that, like you said, emergency section. The only time I really went was for my checkups. I stay away from the doctor. So here it's like bombarding me with all of this, and it was very overwhelming. And but we did have some great doctors, and Tinley. I think they're all They were all amazed at seeing her over the years. Now we have moved, since, and we're in Virginia, so we don't have the same doctors as we did. But some of the ones that we had from birth all the way till we left when she was like 12. I know one in particular we really liked because he was from Europe. I don't remember where exactly he was from, but he was her neurosurgeon. And he, after one of her surgeries, major brain surgery, skull surgery, I should say, he sat by my bedside and he said he didn't have any hope for how she would be today or even tomorrow. And I mean, I was just utterly devastated. I think she was probably 9 or 10 months old. She wasn't even, quite a year. And she had her second major skull reconstruction, which is like cutting the skull from here to here, cutting it open and reconstructing it, opening up those sutures for her brain, giving her brain, room to grow. And then her skull was literally like Swiss cheese. If you know what Swiss cheese is, the worst Swiss cheese you've ever seen with all the holes. That's how her skull was. Like, it was fused where it wasn't supposed to be, and there was holes everywhere. So what they did was they patched it up. It kind of reminds me of tuck pointing on the side of a building. They were patching it up and filling in all the holes. And she literally had toothpick bones growing into her brain. And that's how they explained it to us. This was, her first surgery was skull surgery was at 4 months old, and it was over 12 hours long. 4-month old, 12 hours long, the worst day of my entire life. And we weren't hearing a lot from the doctor, so it was plastic surgeon, neurosurgeon taking turns. And so the neurosurgeon was pulling those toothpick-like bones out of the brain. And he said he did as many as he thought necessary, but some were still in there because he said it's like getting sometimes getting a gunshot. It's better to leave the bullet in than to retrieve it. So I was like, whew. And so after he sat by a bedside and said that, I could kind of understand, but I also know that God is miraculous, even though I was devastated. And he sent along a family, not even Christian, but not even Christian. They had adopted a child with Apert Syndrome, and they were in Chicago. And they were our first contact. Their daughter at that time was 4 months old. So the lady, the mom, she was in a wheelchair. And she lived her whole life in a wheelchair. And she had a disability. I don't know exactly what it was. And she was there that day when he told me. And I told her, I was like, I'm devastated. And this is what he said about Tinley. And I'm just heartbroken. And she shared her testimony with me. And I barely knew her. I just had met her, shortly after Tinley was born. And they were just great support for us. She said, I know you probably don't know, but the first whole year of my life, I lived in the hospital. And now she's like what was her title? She was the chief of staff for Mayor Daley, the mayor of Chicago. And I didn't even know that when I first met her. And she's like, I lived my first whole year in the hospital. And they said the same thing to my mom. And not saying, look at me now, but that's what she was saying. And I was like, God knew to bring this family, even though they're not Christians, into my life to share that with me. And
you needed that hope.
Yeah, every time after we went to see the neurosurgeon, after that surgery, as Tinley recovered, and every year he was so amazed at what she was capable of doing. And I don't think he said it coming in from a bad place. I think he said it coming from what he's seen, because we really liked him, and I think he was a great doctor. But he had probably seen things we never seen. I haven't talked to him in, years, but I would love to, do a little video, say, this is Tinley, because he would be so amazed because of the things that, she's capable of doing. Yeah.
Now, you were in Chicago, so didn't you all go to the Children's Hospital because it's right there?
That's funny. No. Well, she was born at UIC, and UIC had a cranial facial center there. And that's what does the reconstruction and does a lot of children with what she has is called craniosynostosis and the reconstruction, the plastic surgery. We wanted to get into Lurie's Children's Hospital. We had to pull teeth to get in. We couldn't get in right away. And by chance, she did like a sleep study, and her sleep study was really bad. And finally, they took her right away. But it took years to get in. They didn't take her just right away.
Because I was thinking, look how God lined that up. Like, you're in Hawaii, and you start talking to your husband in Chicago, and he wants you to come, and you're like, no. But then you go, but God lined everything up that you were at Chicago when you needed the cranial whatever. I mean, not many hospitals probably have that.
No, if we would have been in Hawaii, they would have had to transport us. They would not have probably been able to care for Tinley. We probably would have had to go to California or something. I know she was born in the right place. I mean, if she would have been born here, we'd have to go to the city, Charlottesville. We were the furthest hospital away, I think, was 30 minutes, and that was Shriners. We did a lot at Shriners. She had all of her finger surgeries at Shriners. We loved Shriners Hospital, and the plastic surgeon there was different than the one that did her skull at Lurie's. But yeah, I mean, at one time I think she had 13 doctors. I mean,
wow,
it was just really overwhelming. But as she's gotten older, things have gone back a bit, so we don't have to see as many. She still has possibly more surgeries, like oral surgery for teeth and some different, but hopefully only minor That's what I'm hoping.
You've gone through so much with her, and she's 12 now. Is that what you said?
No, she's 15.
Oh, 15. Sorry, I don't know why I thought
Yeah.
15. So tell us, what is a day like for her now? Like, what can she do? What do you have to do?
So she tries to do pretty much everything she can. Personal hygiene. So like her arms don't really reach like ours. Like she can only bring them like they're not fused, but her joints are just really tight. So she cannot like brush her teeth really well. She can't shower, wash her hair. So I definitely do a lot of personal hygiene for her. I help her get her food, to eat and stuff like that. And we do school. Just like since we moved here, I think like 2 years ago, she started like she could dress herself from the bottom down, but she couldn't like get her shirt on and off that she learned. And that's the thing with Tinley is like I never limit her, and she'll always learn something new. Just simple things that we take for granted, like open a bag of chips. She can't with her hands because her hands, they did separate her fingers the best they could. They gave her 3 fingers and a thumb, but they don't have joints. They don't bend like ours. We want her to be as independent as she can. So I'm like, okay, here's scissors. So she learned how to open things with scissors, instead of always asking, hey, could you open my bag of chips? There are some things that she's not capable of doing. She knows that, but doesn't say that she's not going to try and maybe eventually be able to do it.
So she's got a strong will, like her
Oh,
mom.
yes, very much so. She inherited that from both sides, me and her dad.
So, what do you think is hardest to deal with?
Well, number one, the surgeries and just like going through all of that, they were easier. Not really. For her, probably when she was younger, because she didn't realize she's been through like 14 surgeries, and not counting procedures and all the therapy that she's been through. But another hard part is the acceptance, because with people with differences, they're not really accepted. Or people, I mean, we've heard everything. I was just talking to someone recently, and they're like, just sharing like, how rude and unkind people have been. And they're like, what? Like they were like totally oblivious that people could be so unkind. I was like, we heard everything. I mean, little 4-year-old literally got in her face at McDonald's calling her ugly repeatedly on repeat. And I'm like, where are the parents? I don't fault the little kids as much, for their behavior or questioning. It's the adults, because you need to be teaching your child. That's a teachable moment, instead of like just letting them do whatever. But my mother-in-law, she's the one that finally approached the parent. It's like, your child needs to leave my granddaughter alone because they're just being rude. Tinley, at that point, she just laughed about it. She probably handled it better than I. Sometimes, actually, to be honest, going out in public was just a task for me. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to deal with it. My husband was better about it than me, but there's sometimes I can't do it. I just can't do it because it's like we were putting on a show every time we went somewhere, because everybody would just stare, and I get curiosity, but when you're an adult, come on, this is rude. And be a better person, and also sometimes just sharing our story over and over again, got kind of tasking, and I don't mind sharing it, but there's a point when it's just like, I just want to go out and be normal. And it's just hard. And we were on vacation in Nags Head like last week. This hasn't come up in a long time. And Tinley came to me, and she's staring at me, and I don't like it. And I was like, wow, this hasn't happened in a while. And I was like, Tinley, it's okay, because it's a preschooler. And then she said something that, wasn't really that nice. And I thought, okay, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to handle this? And so if Tinley said something, I would say, I would handle it. But I don't think she heard it this time. So I just left it alone and I walked away. And yet it did bother me, but I was like, I've changed a lot over the years because I've gotten more used to it. Not that I like it. I just teach Tinley that she's beautiful. God created you this way. Yes, you may not understand because she's like, why don't I have fingers like you? And she's starting to notice different things. And I said, I don't really have the answers, but these are the answers I can give you. And I love you, you know, the way you are no matter what. And God made you that way, so we have to accept it, even if, you know, we don't want to. And when other people say things that aren't nice, they don't know you. And honestly, it doesn't really matter because people that know you, they accept you for the way you are.
Right. And that's how it should be. Yep.
Yeah, and they see the good in you. And you don't have to worry about those people.
Right. And it seems like the problem sometimes now is with the adults, not the kids. And my little nephew, I don't know, my sister's like, he's attracted to the kids that nobody wants to play with, or they might look different. And he's like, do you want to be my friend? Like, he's just has that attitude. And I'm so appreciative because a lot of kids are like who you're just, you know, they make fun and they point. So and I don't know if you've heard, but at the end of the podcast, his voice comes on. Little Cannon says something at the end of every podcast. I can't imagine every day you're probably dealing with reaffirming with her, you are beautiful. God made everybody different. I'm different than you. And so, you know, God made everybody, but for her to see that and Mom, look at your fingers. I know that's got to be hard. You're like superwoman, taking care of, you know, when we have kids, they grow up and then they kind of take care of themselves, but you're still having to do that. But I want to let everyone know your story did not end with Tinley. I want you to share before we're out of time, but I don't know how long ago it was, but you said you moved to Virginia. So can you kind of tell us at the end kind of what's happened in your life?
So we moved to Virginia 4 years ago in August. Hard to believe it's already that long. And so when we were in the process of moving, we had already moved here. My kids and I and my husband had to finish up some things in Chicago. 3 years ago, and June 22nd, I think, I can't even remember, 22nd, 2022, my husband just dropped dead of a heart attack. And he had had open heart surgery April of that year. He had just started going back to work, and because everything had gone well as far as we knew, and he had gone back to work. And I texted him the night before. It was Father's Day was on Sunday. I think it was on Monday, and I texted him, and it was kind of weird that I didn't hear from him. But I thought that he had been having a lot of trouble with his phone. His phone wasn't working. We didn't have a landline. And I thought, okay, so he's going to go to work tomorrow because I think Monday's his day off. He'll go to work tomorrow or something like that. And he'll message me, but I never heard from him. That morning, I was getting a little bit worried because he should have already been at work, and I thought he would call me, you know, from work and stuff. So I was trying to figure out what's going on, why I'm not hearing from him. So I called the neighbor, and I did all of this like secret because I didn't want the kids to know anything, and I was kind of doing it in secret. I called the neighbor because we were pretty good friends with my neighbor up there in Chicago, and she's like, his car's there, and she's trying to go, you know, bang on the door, and nobody answered. So finally I messaged one of his coworkers. We had become really good friends. And I said, is Roger at work today? And she's like, no, he's not. And I said, that's weird. And so she said, let me give you his boss's number. So I gave she gave me the boss's number, and I called the boss, and she's like, no, he didn't show up and he didn't call. And that's not normal. And we have agreed on that. So call my neighbor again. And she's like, we'll call 911 and, you know, have them come out. Well, it's in Chicago. They refused, even with me on the phone. They refused to go into the house. They came out, but they wouldn't go in the house because they said it could be a setup or whatever. And I've tried to explain the situation, and he apologized, but he said I can't. And so the only thing I could do was call my brother-in-law that lived 45 minutes away in the suburbs, and I had to call him. And so he and my nephew went out and had to bust the door down, and he was laying on the kitchen floor, and he had died of a heart attack. So of course the police, everybody came back, and then they apologized, but they're like, this is a protocol and whatever. That was quite an event.
Yes,
I can't believe it's 3 years. It's like time has just gone by so fast, and the amazing things that we've seen the Lord do in these last 3 years. I almost can't believe I'm like sitting here. I can't believe I'm sitting here, and it's rough on all of us, but
yeah, I mean,
he says that he's not going to give us more than we can bear, and sometimes I'm like, share it with other people.
I've had enough. Pass it along.
Yeah. Pass it along, give to someone else, so.
And I can't imagine. So everyone that's listened to your story about Tinley and the surgeries, and they probably are like, wow, like, look what you've gone through, Superwoman. Now you have more, like it, like I just can't imagine. So I really appreciate you sharing. And a Bible verse comes to mind when I think of everything that you've gone through. James 1:12, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trials, for when he stood the test, he'll receive the crown of life. So you have gone through so much, and you're flourishing. Like those of you who don't know Sarah, like I do, she has really gotten into plants and flowers. She probably could start her own garden and greenhouse. And very interesting, she has so many. So she's not given up. Like, a lot of times we go through things and it's like, this is just not worth it. Like, I just cannot keep going on. And I'm so thankful you shared today, because I know there's someone out there that is listening to what you say, and they might feel like, I've gone through so much, I just cannot take anymore. And then hearing your story, that will give them the faith and the hope that they need.
We can hope for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, my plants is what gets me through. Maybe like 150 houseplants. Yeah, you're right. And my dream is to, start my own, have a greenhouse and all that. And it might be coming faster than I think.
Well, see, there'll be more to your story. We'll have to have
my sourdough.
See, sourdough, she is like the homemaker. Yeah, so I'm so thankful again, Sarah. I know you're busy and you got your kids to take care of. Thank you again. And I also, before we close, I want to mention, I've had some people reach out and ask about doing a podcast. How do I know? That's where I was, and I was a little nervous and scared because I didn't know where to start. So if you are interested, you could email me, mondayswithmichelle2911@gmail.com, and I can share everything that I know about starting it, because it is a blessing. The platform that I found has been a great help to me too. But thank you again, Sarah. I appreciate it.
It was great talking to you. We need to catch up more often.
Yes, we'll try to get together in person. So okay. I appreciate it. You all have a great week, and we will see you next Monday. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me for Mondays with Michelle. If today's story encouraged you, please share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have an inspirational story to share, or you would like to be a guest on the future episode, please send an email to mondayswithmichelle2911@gmail.com. See you next Monday.
Like and subscribe to Mondays with Michelle.